Hey everybody, now we're going to go through the audiogram. So when we're testing your hearing, we're testing each ear separately. And you'll start to notice on this graph here, you'll see red circles for the right ear, blue circles for the left. And we're trying to figure out, do both ears have an issue or is it just one? And when we look at the audiogram, as I go from here, from the left to the right, okay, so 125 all the way over to 8,000 Hertz, this represents the different pitches. So each of the vertical lines is a pitch, right? We have our bass or our low frequencies over here, and then over to the right side we have the high pitches, and that's where a lot of the clarity, the consonants are found here in the higher frequencies. As we go from top to bottom, so all the horizontal lines, now we're going into volume, really, really soft to really, really loud. So normal hearing is from -10 to 20 decibels. So right up here at the top in this box, that's where we should be at, right? If we're up close to zero, we don't really have any hearing issues, our hearing's normal, we're fine. But if we're starting to lose our hearing, then that becomes an issue. Now again, if we're losing our hearing on the left side of the screen, which is over here, then what happens is we're losing power, we're losing the volume. If we're losing hearing over on the right side, we're losing clarity. A lot of female voices, children voices are higher pitched. So if we do have like a high frequency hearing loss where this is like dropping right here in the mid and high frequencies, then their voices will sound softer to us compared to like hearing like a male voice or somebody's voice that has more bass in it. But overall, everybody's hearing is different, and that's why it's vital that we test your hearing, and this is how we're finding your prescription. So when we look at like me speaking to you here, my voice, my volume is about 65, 70 decibels, which is right down here, right? This is where like a normal conversation is. And if my hearing's way up here at the top, I'm not gonna have a problem, I'm not gonna have an issue. Now, if your hearing is dropping here in the high frequencies, okay, then what happens is you're losing clarity. So to the brain, it almost sounds like a muffled sound. So like when I'm speaking to you, I sound like I'm sharp, clear, easy to understand. But as I slowly kind of bring my hand over my mouth, I'm going to talk at the same volume. My voice is going to start to change. And then all of a sudden, it's going to start to sound more muffled. And if it starts to sound more muffled, then it's going to be harder to hear me compared to like when I bring my hand away. So that muffled sound could be happening with your hearing, and that's why we need to test and find out exactly where we're at. Now again, like I said, if we're losing hearing over on the left, then we're losing volume. So instead of sound being like this, it starts to sound a lot softer, right? As we go down, it gets softer and softer and muffled, then it becomes harder and harder for the brain to hear. So as we go through the test, we're going to be testing each ear separately, like I said earlier, and we're trying to find out where's your hearing at. And this prescription is what we're actually putting into the hearing devices, so the hearing aids know, hey, I don't need to make the low frequencies as loud as the mids or the highs, right? And it's not just the amplification that the hearing aid goes through, because a true hearing aid is like a mini computer that's processing sound, it's doing so many other things than like the old style devices. So a lot of the old devices just would amplify everything, and then people would be like, oh, I don't like how I'm hearing, because it's not, I'm processing the background noise, and now hearing devices start to process that background noise, which is awesome. The other part of the test that we're going to be testing is your cognitive ability, right? I'm going to find where do you hear sound most comfortable? Where is the softest that you can hear and understand a word? So as I make the words get softer and softer, do you still understand it? And where's that volume level where it's the softest that you can still decipher and figure out what the word is? I'm also finding out where sound becomes uncomfortable. So again, sound's getting louder and louder. And what we're doing is we're trying to find your dynamic range, right? Because what happens is we start to lose our hearing. We need sound to be louder. And if loud sounds we can't tolerate and they're starting to get less tolerable, then we have like this tiny little window to fine-tune your hearing, right? If I make it too soft, you don't hear or understand the word. I make it too loud, it's uncomfortable, and you just want to take them out. So that's why we do that that test to find where sound is uncomfortably loud for you. Then we're also doing what's called a speech recognition test, where I'm finding if I make it loud enough and all the hair cells are firing and stimulating, like, are you able to understand 100% of the words? Or is that going down? So just like how I described in the last video, if we're not treating our brain, if we're not using that muscle, it can atrophy. And when it atrophies, I can try to make sound loud enough, but then the brain can't decipher and recognize what the word is. And that can happen if we've had hearing loss and we allow it to go for an extended period of time. Unfortunately, by the time people kind of realize, oh, you know what, it might be me, I need to get my hearing tested, it's been already 7-10 years. So sometimes that time frame alone can make it to where we're not understanding 100% of the words. It could be a little bit longer where it gets even worse. So if you're trying to figure out, like, do I might have hearing loss, like, that's why we want to test and find out where you're at. So, and again, you get your eyes checked every year, you get your teeth cleaned twice a year. When was the last time you had your hearing checked? Right? So at Heroes of Hearing, we're proactive. So I like to test my patient's hearing every single year because I want to make sure, again, is your prescription staying the same or is it changing, right? Second thing is I want to see how is your processing and understanding of the words. Is that staying the same or is that changing? And I can tell you that for those that it's changing, where maybe they understood 90% of the words and now we've gone a whole year and now it's less, I'm always wondering, like, what's going on, because that normally doesn't happen. And then I jump in and I see, oh, they've only been wearing the hearing devices for 3 hours a day, which means they're not wearing them at all. Now, we have that conversation, why aren't you wearing them? Oh, it's COVID, I live alone, it's quiet. Like, you're still gonna put your hearing devices in. And I talk about that in more videos down the road, because we wanna keep the brain auditorily active. If we don't keep it auditorily active, then we can start to lose the ability to process the sound, and then it can start to lead into those other issues we talked about in the last video, which is Alzheimer's dementia, which is what we want to avoid. So this is the audiogram. This is what we're looking at. The last part of the test, I do test your cochlea directly. So what happens is you have actually if I'm noticing one ear's hearing better than the other, I actually distract the other side with a static sound. It kind of sounds like TV static or a white noise sound. And that noise will get louder and louder. And I'm not trying to see if you can hear that. I'm trying to see if you can hear the beep beep in your test. And those beeps get softer and softer. And every time you hear that beep beep is when you're pressing the button. So again, that's the last part of the test. And that lets me know where the issue is. Because if we have a gap between the circles and the X's and these bracket and greater and less than symbols, then that lets me know, hey, when sound gets to the cochlea, you're hearing great, but when we hit the eardrum, you need it so much louder, so there's that problem, right? And that's when I start to say, hey, here's a red flag, like I need to have you be seen by an ear, nose, and throat and get cleared that way. But like I said, for the majority of the time, that's not the case. The signal's getting through, we just have those hair cells that are wearing out. So that's the audiogram. I will go through this in regards to like showing you your test results. So I'll test you, see if you paid attention to this video. But I'm excited to see you. It's coming up really soon. So if you have any questions, bring them to the appointment. But that's why I wanted to go through your audiogram, what we're looking for. One last thing. Some patients have asked, what are these letters up here? This is called the speech banana. And these letters represent where these sounds naturally come in at. So you'll notice like your vowel sounds, your E, A, I, like they have power and they're in the low frequencies, and naturally they're right here about 45, 50 decibels depending on which sound it is. Now as we get to the consonants, right, you can see they're a lot higher up. That means they're naturally a lot softer. This is your F, your S, your TH sounds, right? And what happens is we physically can't make them get any louder. They stay the same volume. Whereas the low frequencies, we can. So for example, I can say E, E, E. You can hear that start to get louder, but then when we get to those high frequencies, it stays the same volume. So I can go S, S, S. I'm trying to make S get louder, and it doesn't. It stays the same volume. So if we're losing our hearing, like our hearing's like right here for the softest, it could be we're not picking it up or it's really, really faint. And that's why we're missing the S sounds in the words and asking people to repeat. So I hope that helps. I'll see you in the next video. And like I said, I'm excited to see you at your upcoming appointment.